Hello everybody, good evening. How are we? Are we all good? Hey, excellent, that's fabulous news, good. Right, a couple of things to tell you. First of all, we've got 2 codes going on tonight. CB20 is for 20% off your construction board, which there is a video on how to cut on our YouTube channel for CM users, not just for SDX. And also Mel 10 is still available for another week, so still 10% off all your brother accessories and the machine as well, which is great. The other thing I want to tell you is that our training academy is coming together nicely. The new building is underway, so we can move the warehousing into the new building so we can have the warehouse for our training academy. And it's not what you imagine it to be. You know, when you imagine a warehouse, you don't imagine a nice training school. That's exactly what it will be, a nice training school. And our itinerary and our schedule up to the end of June will be on our website from a week on Friday. It might be a little bit earlier, might not. So I'm going to say the end of next week, just to be on the safe side. We did a 2-day retreat at Doncaster Racecourse this weekend, and some of the classes are getting quite, you know, filled up, which is nice. And we had to do that first, and then it will go on general release. But don't worry, because we're not just going to do one class once. We will repeat the classes, and we are starting Christmas in June. Because I think we're going to be busy teaching Christmas all year round from what we heard yesterday at the retreat, so that's great. So that's the kind of housekeeping out of the way. Tonight we're going to deal with fabric, because I've had a lot of people ask me about cutting fabric on the ScanNCut. I've just done the class for SDX, so if you ever want to watch that, that will be available too. But I want to talk about the CM machine and fabric. So let's get started. So the first thing when I am cutting fabric on a CM machine is I put a new blade in, because this blade in here, I have no idea how long it's been in there, and it's been cutting paper. So it's gone a little bit, look, I can do this and it doesn't cut my finger. Sorry if that makes your toes curl a little bit. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put a new blade in, because you need a sharp blade, just like you need sharp scissors when you're cutting fabric. You need a nice sharp blade. So I'm going to pop that into there. And I'm going to start with my blade depth on, because it's a new blade, probably between 4 and 5, because doing fabric on an SDX is different to doing a fabric on a CM machine, so it's important that I show you both. Now, there are several different things that you can do with your fabric. The first thing you can do is take a low-tack mat and a high contact adhesive sheet. So this is a sheet of really, really sticky adhesive that you put onto a low-tack mat, and then your unstabilized fabric goes on top of that. So I'm going to show you how to do that bit first. Now these don't come, I don't think, unless you've got a CM900, and I'm having to remember this because it's a while since we've done that. I think you got 1 or 2 with your CM900, but any others you didn't. So these are what we call high contact adhesive sheets. We do have them on our website. If they're not in stock, let us know and we can get them back in for you. And this will stabilize your fabric without having to iron anything on the back. So all you do is put it onto a low tack mat, and you make sure that the sticker is facing you. Doesn't matter which way around the sticker is, just make sure it's facing you. And then you're just going to pop it onto here. And you want to make sure that you haven't got any air bubbles in this. So try and get it straight. And try and kind of, do you remember when you used to hang wallpaper? Well, you might still hang wallpaper. And you started at the middle and you brushed out like that to get rid of all the bubbles. That's what you're going to do here. Yeah, I remember my dad. Wallpaper paste and getting up the ladder and having his plumb line, which was a weight on a piece of string to make sure it was straight. Well, that's taken me right back. Right, so let's get this nicely burnished down with no bubbles in it. And then we'll use our little spatula just to take the backing off. You're going to keep this because you're going to want to keep this nice, and I'm just going to burnish that down a little bit better first of all. So I'm going to get that adhesive right into that mat like that. And what this is going to do is just keep your fabric held in place while you cut it. So let's see now what we've got. It's better. So you're going to keep this because this can go back on top of here and protect it, because if you think regular mats gather dust, this will gather even more dust. So I've just been through to our creative room, and we have a lovely lady called Angie who comes in a couple of days a week. She's our fabric lady, so she does a lot of our fabric samples for Lemon Lane, and she's given me a piece of this poplin that we are going to be selling. So nice tight weave on this. When I did the SDX class, I used this fabric, and it's quite, you can see it's quite stretchy. It's quite an open weave, and it cut it, but it was quite difficult to get it off the mat. A basic shape, it was fine. An ornate shape, it struggled with. So let's try this. This is a poplin, and this is a much tighter weave. This feels really nice. This feels like a really nice kind of cotton bed sheet, if you will. And I don't think it matters which way we go. So I'm just going to position this on here. And we're going to think about how we cut this. So I want you to know that when you are cutting on one of these high contact adhesive sheets, it will cut through the sheet. It won't cut through the mat, hopefully, if we get our settings right, but it will cut through the actual sheet itself. Just put the piece back in if it comes off on the back of your fabric, and keep using it until it's literally in shreds, and then you can take it off and you can put a new one on. So you don't need to throw the mat away. You can keep the mat, you just take the extra adhesive off and away. Right, so for a stabilised fabric, which we're going to do next, I would normally put my speed on 5 always, my pressure on 5 and my blade depth on 5, because you need to get through it in one go. But I'm just going to have a play around because I've got a brand new blade. So I'm going to put my blade on 4, and I'm going to pop that into my machine. And let's ask it to do a flower shape. So something that's going to give it a little bit of that one. Let's do that one. And the reason I'm doing this is because it has to go into that turn there, which is quite sharp, come out, go in again, out, in again. So it's not an easy, well, it's not a difficult shape for it to cut, but it's not an easy shape either. And I'm going to scan this mat in. So I'm going to load this in, I'm going to scan it in. And it is very different cutting on a CM to an SDX, because I didn't ever really realise it, but the mats feel thinner. I think they must have thickened them up a little bit with the SDX, but it doesn't mean to say that we can't do what they can. So we'll work it out one way or another, or we'll try to work it out one way or another. So I've got my piece of material on there. If I go into here and make my background darker, you might be able to see it better there on the screen. And I'm going to move this flower over here like that. So we're going to start with our blade on 4. I'm going to put my pressure on 4. Or I might put my pressure on 3. It's a while since I've done this. And let's see what we get. If it doesn't work first time, it doesn't matter. I haven't tested this. This is a brand new material to me, so I have no idea what it's going to take. But this is how we learn. So don't ever be scared of doing this. And I would rather do it for you somewhere like this than you do it and cut through your mat. Because obviously the auto blade kind of prevents that, but with the CM you don't have that function. So if you're ever stuck and you can't work something out, just send me a piece to Highlight Crafts and I'll test it for you, because that way you're not cutting through your mats. So if I press start now, let's see what we get. Like I say, I have no idea what it's going to do, but it's quite exciting. Okay, looks pretty good. Right, so before you unload it, go to a corner and just pull it back and see what we've got. Oh, perfect, look at that. Right, so let's unload that, make sure that it's, now we know that it's cut through. I'm going to peel this back like that. Like that, right, so now we've got to try and get it off. That's the trick, isn't it? Because there's no point cutting it if we can't get it off. So let's try it. Let's get our little spatula underneath there. Okay, so this is fraying as it's coming off this mat. So I'm going to try something else because that's no good. There's no point having that if it's going to fray like that when it's coming off. So that tells me that this sheet is a little bit too sticky. So what I'm going to do is go to a regular standard mat and let's see if it will work on here better. Andrew, are you there? Oh, sorry, I was just checking because I couldn't hear him and he's normally giving me advice on what to do and he's not there. So, are you doing your steps, love? Oh. Oh, he's just being quiet, which is quite nice, I have to say. Right, let's go back and let's scan this in. So I wonder if it's, I'm just wondering whether it's going to work better without that high-tack adhesive on, because trying to get a thin fabric off is quite tricky. So let's see, let's scan this in again and see. It's always good to try a little bit of a trial and error class, isn't it? And then we know what works and what doesn't work. Right, let's have a look. Now, you could always add a seam allowance to your shapes, especially if you're doing quilting, which would then get rid of all that frayed edge. But I just want to see if it works better like this. So let's try this. Same settings, because it wasn't the setting that was wrong. It was just the mat was a bit too sticky. So let's see what this does. And this is a pretty new standard mat. I would also keep one mat for fabric and one for your paper. I wouldn't mix and match those either. Right, so I can see that this is puckering a little bit. So let's have a look, see what it's like when we take the excess away. Oh no, it's all right, it's good. We're good to go. What you don't want to do is have to cut fabric twice, especially when it's a fabric that's got a warp and a weft, because if you don't go right through and cut it from underneath, it's going to drag the fibres and that's when it will start to pucker. And there was a little bit of puckering, but I think that was just because it's not there now. I think that was just because the blade was, because the material isn't A, stabilised on the back, or B, on a high contact adhesive sheet. It was just moving it a little bit as it's cutting. But let's see what we get with this now. Look at this, this is much better. Right, so on a CM machine, for regular poplin cotton, I wouldn't use the high contact adhesive sheet because that, compared to that, is like night and day. Look, so it's pulled because we've been pulling it off the sticky sheet, whereas that one on a regular standard mat is perfect. Now I just want to have a look at the back because I can see on this mat there is a little bit of a cut through on there. So I would drop your pressure down because the pressure, and if I just explain this to you, this is the best way to explain it to you. The pressure is the force that the machine puts on the blade. So we don't need to force the blade through. We need the blade depth to do the work, not the force on top of it. So I would take your pressure down to maybe 1 or 2. And I would up your blade slightly because you need to still make sure that that blade cuts from underneath that fabric. So probably your blade on 5 and your pressure on 1 will cut a thin poplin cotton that isn't stabilised. And the best way that I can describe the pressure and the blade depth is, if this is my husband was a stonemason. So this is his chisel and this is his hammer. This is the blade depth and this is the pressure. If he uses the blade depth and very gently increases the pressure, he'll get a really nice smooth finish. If he does that, he's going to shatter it and he's going to make a mess of it. So always, if you're cutting something with a blade depth on 5 and a pressure of 1 and it's not cutting through, increase your blade. Don't increase your pressure. Your pressure is your last resort because it doesn't need to force that blade through when there's still blade depth to play around with. I hope that makes sense, because that's the main thing that you need to know about working on a CM machine. It's all about gauging that blade depth and that pressure. And if you've got something like, I don't know, a stabilised fabric, like this, if I just take my blade out of the machine, or even a piece of card, whatever it is, if you put your blade up against the fabric, and you can see the fabric, the blade over the top when you look at it. So if the blade is higher up than the fabric, you know it's going to cut through. Okay? If it's too far through, it's too deep, so just knock it back a bit. So if I put that piece of fabric there against that blade, I can see the blade over the fabric, over the top of the fabric. So I know that that's going to work. And it really is as simple as that. I think people get really wrapped up in worrying about cutting through their mat, and quite rightly so, although I've cut through this bit a little bit, but I can just put some tape on the back. Just put a piece of masking tape on, a high tack masking tape. Don't use a low tack, because you don't want that masking tape coming off, and you can keep using your mat until you're ready for a new one. But don't be scared of using that blade depth. That's what it's there for, okay? So we've done non-stabilised fabric. Now let's do stabilised fabric. So I'm going to talk to you about the backings that I use. You can use any stabiliser, I presume. I don't sew yet. I say yet because we've got some lovely, exciting things coming. But I have used an iron-on stabiliser for a long time. So I used to supply wholesalers across the country with hand-painted garments. And you want to try this one day because it's really cool. So I used to go down to Blackburn Market and buy a piece of satin and take it home and wet it and put it on a plate. So you wet it and scrunched it up and put it on a plate. Then you got silk paint on a brush and just dabbed it. And because it's wet, it just spreads. And then you scrunch it up again. And then you put it in the microwave and you cook it for 2 minutes. I know, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? And then when you take it out, the silk paint has bonded to your satin. And then you dye in the back to set it. Then we used a product called Heaton Bond. And iron the Heaton Bond on the back. And then I would design a flower, cut that out as a template by hand. How I wish I'd had ScanNCuts then. That would have saved me months of my life. And every now when we've finished painting our 100 garments, we'd go down and start cutting out for the day after. And some of them have 5 or 6 flowers on, so you can imagine. But Heaton Bond there's 2 different types. There's Heaton Bond Ultra, which we used to use, which is you just literally iron it with a dry iron onto the fabric, and then you don't need to seal it. We did used to seal it. We used to go around with a dimensional fabric paint and seal it that way. But if you're making a quilt, you could literally take that and iron it on top and it would be fine. And then they do Heaton Bond Light. It's by a company called ThermoWeb. So it's ThermoWeb. And unlike Bondaweb, which is a fusible webbing and can eventually break down in the wash, the Heaton Bond is phenomenal product. It's a sheet of glue. So you press your fabric first, so make sure your fabric's nice and flat, and then with a hot, dry iron, you iron Heaton Bond onto the back of your fabric. Now, before you cut it on your ScanNCut, you need to take the paper backing off, because otherwise the paper backing will stick to your mat and your fabric will come loose. So you take the paper backing off and you're left with this sheet of glue on the back, you see? So then you're going to pop that onto your mat, just like that. Press it down, give it a little burnish. You don't want to stretch those fibres, of course, but give it a little burnish. And then we're going to do the same. Now, because my blade depth and my pressure was a little bit high for just regular poppling, I'm actually going to just but this is stabilised and it's now thicker. I'm going to take my blade up between 4 and 5 and I'm going to leave my pressure on whatever I had it on. Let me remember, 3, because it needs a little bit more to get through that glue. Okay, so let's try this one now and see what we get with this. So I'm going to load my mat and scan that in. And it's just good, you know, for somebody like me that doesn't sew a lot, but likes to do a little bit of applique now and again. You might buy a plain denim bag and just want to applique something on. This is great. And we'll see what, you know, how we go with the different materials that we cut on the SDX, comparing it to the CM, and see if we can work them out. Excuse me, I've been talking a lot this weekend. My voice is literally about to go. So I'm going to press cut, and just while it's doing that, I'm going to have a quick drink. That's better. Right, so before you unload your mat, always make sure that it's cut through, because if it hasn't, you can go again. Right, this is when, this always made me laugh on air, this is when the presenter would look at me with a little bit of panic in their face, because it actually doesn't look like it's cut. You can just see it there. It cuts as well as a steel rule die. It's that good. But you have to think about what the other things that Brother do. They do sewing machines and they do embroidery machines, so they understand fabric. So if I peel this off now, you can see even with the backing taken off, it doesn't matter. And then this bit you can scan back in and cut all your other bits and pieces out of it. But look how well it's cut this fabric. Now, to get this off, I'm just going to pull it to the edge of my table, and I'm just going to bend the mat slightly like that, just to get my spatula underneath here like this. So let's keep going. Now, it will depend, I can see this has cut through the mat a little bit here, so it will depend on how new your blade is. So because I've got a new blade, it's cutting super, super, super fine and super sharp. So I would drop my pressure down. But I'd rather I did this than you did this. So I will put my pressure on 2 and keep my blade depth on 4. In fact, let's do it and then we can work it out for you. So there we go, look, like that. So that's cut perfectly. So let me do another piece, because I don't want to just guess. I want to get it right for you. Right, so let's do this. And like I said, I hadn't tried all these things before we came live, because I wanted to do it live so that if it didn't work, I can teach you how to make it work. Right, so let's put this up here. Let's scan it in. I have to say, the one thing I love about the CM machine that I don't love about the SDX machine is the fact that you can load the mat both ways, because it just makes life a whole lot easier. Right, so stylus. I mean, you get used to it, but it was because they put like a little hole in the end of one of the side ends of the mat on the SDX, because people in America wanted to be able to hang the mats up to keep them flat. Personally, I'd rather buy a big box and actually be able to load my mat either way, but what do I know? Right, so cut pressure 2, and I'm going to drop my blade down. No, I might actually take my pressure down to 1 and keep my blade on 5. Let's just see what happens. Oh, let's pop that in there and press OK and cut and see what we get this time. It's quite fun, this bit. I do like this bit. I like working stuff out, you see. I'm a bit of a problem solver. Somebody comes to me, how do I do this? How do I make a box? How do I make it do this? That's my favourite thing in the world. I love it. Right, let's see what we've got now. So let's get our spatula and let's pull this back. Ah, much better. Right, so there we go. Don't need that much force because we're using our blade depth. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Right. And that's not cut through the mat at all. So the setting was speed 5, as always, a brand new blade on 5 and your pressure on 1. And look at that, absolute perfection. It hasn't frayed, it hasn't puckered, it hasn't pulled, it's just fabulous. And then you would literally take that to your fabric, hot dry iron, and then that glue will melt. It's brilliant, honestly. Heaton Bond, one of the best products I've ever used. And we used to order it in a, was it 150 metre bolt? It was something like that. We used to buy loads of it and it never ever let me down. So that's good. Right, so what's next? Let's have a go with, what shall we do next? Let's do something that you might not expect me to do, which is leather. Right, I'm going back to my mat with my sticky sheet on now. So we had some lovely ladies come to our offices the other day. They are people that sell vegan leather. And they brought us, I love the smell of leather. Oh, it's like, oh, I just love it. It's that and the smell of new carpets. You know when you have a new carpet laid and you walk in and you can smell, oh, I love it. So I'm just going to trim this down. Now this is, I would say, reasonably thick. So it's probably 1.5 mil thick, I would say that. And it's got kind of a suede feel on one side and then this beautiful soft leather. I mean, it's like glove leather, you know, that really soft, beautiful leather. And it just smells amazing. So we're going to try cutting this. Now, this is going to take a little bit of working out, so we'll just do it because we can. And I'm going to put it down with the the smooth leather facing down and the kind of suede feel facing up. So let's get this nice and flat. You don't want any bubbles in it because if you've got a bubble, the blade will go through into the bubble, but it won't touch the mat, so it won't cut cleanly. Right, so let's get that on there. Right, so thinking about it logically, we know that the pressure was right for cotton. This doesn't have any warp and weft, it doesn't have any threads, so we can cut it several times if we need to. And I'm going to actually take my blade up to about, let's try about 8, I think. And I'm going to keep my pressure on 1. And I'm just going to do the same shape again. So let's see what we get this time. I'm going to load my mat in. And I would rather, when you're testing things like this, I would rather you start low and work up than start high and cut through your mat and then work down. So let's scan this piece of leather in. Now the other thing with the CM is you can't lift the back rollers. The rollers that are in this machine are on little springs. So as long as you're not going too thick with your material, if you go too thick, it'll hit the scanner unit at the back and you don't want that. But the little springs in here on the rollers, the little rollers are on springs, so they do have some give. So when you scan something in that's thick, the little spring comes in and it lifts that roller. So just be realistic about it, but don't worry about scanning in something that's a little bit thicker. Okay, so let's pop this here and let's see what we get. So let's press cut. No idea if this is going to work at all. But if I never try, I'll never know. So let's see. Well, it's definitely cutting through. I'm just hoping I've got a mat at the end of it. Right, let's have a look. Let's see if we need to go again, or whether it's cut through. Ugh, look at that. Boom. I think the word the kids would use is. Right, look at that. Right, glove leather. Okay. Now, it has cut through the sticky sheet at the back, which I would expect. Doesn't matter. That's what it's there for. It will cut through. It doesn't matter how hard you try, it will cut through. That's what it's meant to do. Don't think it's a mistake. Don't ring brother and say it's cut through my mat, because they'll just tell you what I tell you. It's absolutely meant to. So let's just ease this off gently. So hold the sticky sheet. So as I'm peeling the leather off, I'm just pushing that sticky sheet back onto my mat like that. And look at that. Now it's taken a little bit off. So I'm going to take that little bit. I'm just going to put it back into the place that it came out of. Okay? And then you can continue to use it if you can get it off your fingers. There you go. Look at that. Isn't that fabulous? So appliques for handbags, I would say little purse charms, little key rings. You can use Cadence paint on your leather. So you could do your leather effects. You could, how could you shape that? Could you shape that? Let me think about that. I don't know if you can shape leather like that. But you can get the idea, can't you, that this is, you know, cuts brilliantly through leather. Right, I'm going to really challenge it now. I'm a bit scared about this, but you know what? Hey ho. Right, this leather is properly thick, like properly thick. So this is probably handbag leather. If I just show you it like that or like that, you'll be able to see how thick it is. This is probably, I would say, 2.5, 3 mil thick. Andrew's just going to find it for you so you can see. Look, properly thick leather. Now, I've no idea whether it's going to do this. You could use the deep cut blade, but the problem with the deep cut blade is it's so strong that sometimes it lifts the material off the mat as you're doing it. So I'm going to try it with a regular blade. And like I say, I have no idea whether it's going to work or not. So let me do this. And then somebody's asked how small it can cut. Are we talking how small on what kind of fabric, please? So that I know what I'm aiming for. Carol, can you just put a little note in the chat for me? Right, I'm going to try it with my standard blade and see what I get. So let's do this. Now, scanning it in might be an issue. And it doesn't matter whether it's scanning it in or it's cutting it, it's whether these little rollers will take this thickness. So I'd rather I try it first than you try it. So let me scan this and see if it's going to put a strain on those rollers. I won't go much thicker than that, I have to say, but it's okay. It's doing okay. And it didn't hit the scanner unit either, so that's good. Right, let's just make my background lighter so I can actually see it. And let's make this, well, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. There we go, let's try that. Right, let's see how this works. So my pressure's on 1 and my blade depth is on 8 at the moment. So let's see what we get. I'm not guaranteeing it will cut this, but we'll try. It's making a mark on it, so that's a good start. And although it's thick, it's not as dense as construction board. So we might be in with a shot, I don't know. Okay, so it hasn't cut right through, but it is getting there. So the next thing I would do is take your blade out and take your blade up to 10. Okay, so this is really now using that blade depth. I'm not increasing the pressure because I don't need any more force. I need it to go deeper into that level, into that layer. Oh my goodness me, words, Melanie. Into that leather. Right, let's try this. Okay, any type of fabric. So we'll do the stabilised fabric because that's probably the easiest to go smaller, and I'll try quite an intricate shape for you as well. So let's have a look. Okay, we're still not through. So I'm going to take it up to 12, which is as high as it will go. And if this doesn't work now, I'm going to increase my pressure just by 1. And if that doesn't work, we know we need to go onto the deep cut blade. So let's try this. So you're building up that cut. Don't go straight in with 12 because it will put too much force on your blade and it will either take the tip off your blade or it will make your mat pull a little bit. So let's just see where we're at. And it might not even do it, I don't know, but at least you know. Oh, it's not far off. Come on, I just want you to work. Right, I'm going to increase my pressure to 2. And I'm going to send it back round again on that with that blade, because it's not far off at all. And even if you have to finish it off with a pair of scissors, it will still be much easier than cutting it with a pair of scissors in the first place. Because if I just show you how thick this leather actually is, cutting it with a pair of Tim Holtz tonic scissors, these glide through material. I'm really having to put some pressure on that, so it is super thick. So I am asking a lot of a little blade. Yeah, I don't think that's going to go through no matter what I do. So let's unload that and have a look, see where we're at. Oh, it's so close. So close. So what I'm going to try and do is, yeah, it's cutting through there nicely enough. Right, let's get this off here. It's so close. You can actually see, can you see, look here, look, you can see the indentation in there. And Andrew's saying, is it a matter of going over it a few times? It's not. It's about building up that blade depth every time. If I just hold that there, can you see, look, it's almost there. So I'm just going to try something else, because the auto blade from the SDX is a very similar blade to the deep cut blade. So let's try it with this blade and see what it does. It's not going to turn it into an auto blade, obviously, but it will give us an idea of whether the deep cut blade will work. Because I don't think I have. No, I haven't got a deep cut blade in there. I never actually used the deep cut blade. I like to do a gentler cut with my CM, really. But it will be interesting to see if it will be better for this. So now this will be interesting because there's no blade depth to this. So does it give me an option? I'm going to have to work just with my pressure on this. So I'm going to take my pressure down to 1 to start with, because there's no blade depth. So I've no idea whether this is going to work or not. So let's cut and see what I get. Okay, so it's making a cut. This is interesting. I've never done this before, so I'm learning as much as you are tonight. Right, let's take our pressure up 1, because that's all I've got to work with now. On a regular deep cut blade, you would have numbers, but on this one you haven't. So let's just see what happens if I just increase that pressure. You can hear it cutting, and it feels like it's putting quite a bit of weight on it. Let's just try it again. Okay, so what kind of fabric would you use with a deep cut blade? That's what I mean, Anne-Marie. I've never really used it. That's because of that, because it's too powerful a blade, and the standard blade actually does it really well. I've cut denim, leather, oilcloth, you know, a thin leather, all that kind of thing with a standard blade. The standard blade is absolutely brilliant on the SDX, on the CM machine. It's my favourite blade. It really is just fabulous. I'm just going to up my pressure again. And I love the fact that I know everyone goes hoo-ha about, oh, it's an auto blade, etc. But because I've used it so much, I understand how the regular blade works, and I understand that it's not about the pressure and the force that you put on it, it's about the blade depth. So if you have patience, and I don't mean a lot of patience, but you're prepared to learn your machine settings and your blade settings, for me, that's enough. If they'd never bought out an auto blade, it wouldn't have bothered me. But I do understand why customers wanted one, because they didn't want to have to learn all that, which is fair enough. But for me, that's it. I love learning that bit, because that's part of the journey for me. So, you know what, CM, SDX, they're all really good machines, but the number of times people have said, do I need to upgrade? And the answer is no, you don't need to. You might want to, but you don't need to. So, you know, it's up to you. Right, let's see where we're getting, because it started. Oh, it's getting there. Ooh, one more cut. I'm going to go around once more. So this is just increasing the pressure. Now, don't do this with your standard blade. Use your blade depth. But because I haven't got a blade depth, I'm going to try this. Now, on your deep cut blade, I would do it in exactly the same way that I did the standard one. I would start with your pressure on 0 or 1 and build up your cut. And then if at the end you need to, up your pressure, but I don't think you would need to. Right, so let's have a look. Let's have a see what we've got. Oh, lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So you can cut this thickness of leather. You will use a deep cut blade and you will build up gently. And this is leather that I would say you would make handbags out of. And Andrew came down in between doing our SDX class and this, and he would agree. Even boots, I would say that. It's a proper full-on leather, you know, like, yeah, you wouldn't make a wallet out of it, Andrew said. It's too thick, and he's quite right. Now, any bits like this that come out, you're just going to pop back in. This is just from your sticky sheet. So you just pop them back in and keep using it. But this has now cut that leather. So again, handbag charms, things like that. I'm going to pull it off. You can see you've got that sticky sheet on there. So all you then do is just peel that off. But that is really very impressive, I think, because if somebody had brought that to me, I'd have been like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Absolutely. Look at that. That's fabulous. Even a steel rule die would struggle with that, you know, because it's properly thick. That's fabulous. Look how thick that is. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Right, let's see what else we've got. So we have got a new product coming in to us. It's on order, so it might take a few weeks, so don't get overexcited yet, although I am super giddy about it, I have to say. I am going to try this. This is, I like my CM as well, Anne-Marie, even though I've got an SDX. I just love them all, to be honest. But I do think sometimes you can be a little bit more accurate. Just my opinion. This is canvas. So it's got a canvas back. It's got the lovely cream on the front, so it's like cream canvas, and then it's got this plastic coating on. This is printable canvas, and it works in a regular inkjet printer, and it prints brilliantly. So imagine all your reflections, 2 red robins, Quaker bird, printed onto fabric, and then cut out on your ScanNCut. Amazing. Right, so to cut, when you're printing this, you will take this sticky coating off here, and then you'll print directly on the fabric. When you're cutting it, I want you to keep that plastic on. So once you've taken it off, as you can see, you can put it back on. So you could take it off, print it, put it back on to cut it. Brilliant. Right, so let's see how it fares with this, because I'm going to go back to that standard blade again and just see where we get to. Right, so once you've cut something that's got any fibres anywhere near it, like the back of that leather, unscrew it and just tap and get all those little bits out of your blade housing, okay? Because you don't want that blocking around your blade, because then it won't move properly. So I'm going to start with my blade on 7 and my pressure on 1 and see what I get. So pull this down, let's load this in. I do have to say though, the one thing I love about the SDX is it's quiet. You don't realise, but if you've never had an SDX, you won't notice the difference. It's only because I've gone from CM to an SDX and then back to a CM that I notice the sound, and it's no noisier than any other machines on the market. It's just that the SDX is super quiet. So I do love it for that, but yeah, Right, let's do this, and then I'm going to go on to how small you can go with it on fabric. And then that'll bring us to the end of our session, I think. Don't forget, you can email me. Anything you want to know, just email me and we'll cover it in one of the classes. I've got a list going, which is good. Right, let's see. Shouldn't have put that close. Where's my spatula here? Let me just see where we're at. Pull this back, just see. Well, well, well. Well, well, well. Look at that. One pass. I'm going to let you into a little secret. Quite often, I will use my SDX with my CM blade in it because I'm that much of a control freak when it comes to my crafting. But I will quite often do that. Funny, isn't it, how you get used to something and you don't like letting it go. Look at that. One pass, pressure one. That actually cut faster than it did on the SDX. It went round a couple of times on the SDX. Look at that. Brilliant. Yes, we've got a little bit of the sheet on, but look, fabulous, perfect, every single time. So blade depth 7, pressure 1, straight through. Excellent. Right, let's do our stabilised fabric now. So I'm going to go back to my regular mat and let's see, A, how small we can go, and B, how intricate we can go. So let's get a decent piece of fabric on here and let's see where we're at. Take that off, pop that on there. Right, let's have a look. So small first. I can't imagine that you would want it much smaller than a centimetre. Might be wrong, so if I'm wrong, tell me please. Just pop on and go 10 millimetres, is that small enough? So I'm going to go back to 5 and my pressure is still on 1, I believe. Oh no, the cut pressure was on 5. Okay, so the canvas, blade 7, pressure 5, first cut, my bad, sorry, got that wrong. So pressure on 5, thought that was easy, and a blade on 7 will cut through your printable fabric. So when it comes in, we've also got printable shrink plastic coming, which I'm super excited about, because imagine all your 2 red robins and your Quaker bird on that, but that big. That'll be super cool. Right, so I'm going to drop my pressure right down to 1. I'm going to press OK, and let's just use this shape because it's not intricate as in lacy intricate, but it's not simple as in a square, something like that. So let's do it at 10 millimetres. Don't know if this is going to work. Only one way to find out. I've always been like that. I wonder what would happen if, I pressed that button that said do not press. I've still got that little bit of mischief in me now. In fact, I've been in a mischievous mood all day today because I'm giddy about our training academy opening, and when I get giddy, I get a little bit cheeky too. Right, let's move this up here and let's position it right in one of those circles, those blue circles there. Let's zoom in. So if you want a blue flower out of a dotted piece of fabric, we can do that. Look, let's put it there. Right, let's see what we get. That is tiny, to be fair. Let's have a look, see what we get. Do you know what? I don't even know why I ever doubt this machine, because it just delivers every single time. There you go. How about that? That's a bit cool, isn't it? Now we need to make sure we can get it off the mat. That's the next thing, because there's no point in cutting it if we can't get it up, and I haven't brought my tweezers in. I shouldn't really use a blade because that's really naughty. But let's see if we can get our spatula underneath it. You'd be better with a pair of tweezers, I have to say. Right, I'm going to put this on this spatula here so you can see it against a white background. Hasn't frayed getting it off, look at that. That's 1 centimetre. That's cool, isn't it? Right, I need a complex shape now. I need a detail shape. So let's go back. Oh, I want to unload my map, Melanie. Wrong button. Home. It's because my home buttons are on the other side on my SDX. Right, let's see if we can find. Right, let's do one of these because these are this one, I think. Because that's quite difficult because it's got landlocked areas. It also goes into a turn, so it's quite a sharp turn. Let me see if I can find one that's a little bit more. That one. Or that one's actually probably better because it goes right into that tight area there. So I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to ask it to make it smaller. So let's see if we can get this smaller and still. Ooh, wow. Okay, let's really push it. Let's take it down to 1 inch. If you're going to test it, let's put it to the test properly. Right, let's have a look. So let's scan in again. Fabulous. I also worked out the other day how to use Minecraft Studio in conjunction with the ScanNCut. So I'm doing some filming tomorrow with Andrew, so I'll do that again and we'll put that on as a separate video because it was in with the class that we did with the Quirky Bird and Minecraft Studio combo that we did. And if you didn't buy that, you wouldn't get to see the class. So I'm going to do it again tomorrow because it's super cool. Because you can take some of the digital punches that are on Minecraft Studio and turn them into cutting files. And it doesn't matter which machine you've got. This is why I love experimenting, because it opens up a whole another avenue again. Right, so I can see that I've already got my flower in that area, so let's move this over here and let's press cut. It might not cut it that detail, that small, but like I said, we won't know till we try. Yeah, don't doubt the machine, Melanie. Just learn your lesson, love. Right, let's unload that. Genius. Genius, genius, genius. Every single time. Look at that, look at that. That's ridiculous. Right, can we get it off the mat? So this is the mat without the sheet on, which actually I think is a little bit better. Just saying. Right, let's see how small we can. Look at that. Look how fine that is, and it's come off. That's brilliant. If that's not impressive, I don't know what is. That is fantastic. Right, happy with that. How long have we got, Andrew? 6 minutes. Right, let's do the shrink plastic. Oh, actually, no, I'll tell you what, let's do vinyl, because vinyl makes me smile, which is vinyl, because you don't need a vinyl blade. You don't need to buy an extra blade, because your fabulous, fabulous, fabulous blade, standard blade, will do it for you. If you've got a CM machine and you've upgraded to an SDX, you don't really need a vinyl blade either, because you can use your CM one if you've kept your machine. If you sold it on. Right, this is just on the normal mat. Okay, so this isn't with the transfer sheet. Wow, this blade, can you see this is how long I've had this blade? Look, the sticker's lost its sticky. This is how long I've had this. Right, so I'm going to drop this down to between 1 and 2 to start with, so you can just see the tip of the blade, because I want it to kiss cut it. So this is how I work it out. So I'm going to start with it on a low number, and I'm also going to take my cut pressure down to -1, because it doesn't need any force whatsoever. In fact, it needs it to really take that pressure off, because even the cut pressure at 0 will have a level of pressure, and then a negative pressure takes that off. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point having a negative pressure. And I'm just going to do this little shape again, but I'm not going to waste my vinyl. So I'm going to move that over there. So let's see what we get with this, and then we can adjust it. So start low and then adjust from there. So let's press OK and cut and see what we get. So there are pros and cons, aren't there, for everything? You get an SDX, you get the auto blade, and you get a much quieter machine with a much more powerful motor. But you buy a CM and you get a fabulous blade for vinyl, and you know, it's just, it really is horses for courses. Now, look at this. So if I pull this back, that's cut right through that vinyl, okay? So it's cut the vinyl, but it's also cut the back layer, and I don't want it to do that. I want it to kiss cut it. So what we do is go back into our settings and take the pressure down to -2. So this time I'm not dropping my blade depth because I still want it to get through that vinyl, and vinyl doesn't have any fibres to tear. So it's like a plastic, so you can't tear it. So you think about, it's not easily torn, so it needs the blade depth to get through it, but it's not thick, so it doesn't need as much pressure. So pressure on -2 and blade on 2. Let's see what we get. And bear in mind, this is also a new blade, so this is super, super sharp right now. So if I press OK and I go back, I'm just going to move that over, and we'll see what we get now. Let's have a go. I'm impressed actually that it's done that leather, really impressed. And I'm impressed that it almost did it with this blade. Right, let's see if this looks better. This is it, got it. Right, so with a brand new blade, pressure on -2. Now look at the difference. So this is a really good one for you to see. This is with the pressure. Let me see if I can hold it up to the camera like that. There you go, that's better. There we are. So this is the difference between having your pressure on -1 and having your pressure on -2. Look at the difference that force makes. That's a really, really good demonstration, just to show you what the difference the pressure makes, okay? So that will, just remember that bit because that's important. And I haven't got my tweezers with me, so I'm just going to use this blade, which is very naughty of me, but you know what? I've always been a bit of a rebel. Don't do rules very well. And that's just stopping me being a rebel because it won't let me get it off. So let's do this way instead. Now, on the SDX, you have an option to add a weeding box, which is a shape that it puts round it so that you don't have to do this. Now look, so this is cut the top, but it hasn't cut right through. So we're still not there. So what we need to do, keep our pressure low and up our blade depth slightly, very slightly. So I'm going to take it to just over 2. And this is what I like as well. Because I've got these numbers around my blade, I can go anywhere between 2 and 3. It doesn't have to be 2 or 3. It can be anywhere in between. So actually you can be really, really, really precise with your blade. Right, let me go back. It's understanding what the pressure does and what the blade depth does. And once you've got that, it's easy. And also you think about different cards. So if you're using a card that you know, like our Craftmaster card, the fibres are quite open, so it's easy to cut through. If you're using something like Super Smooth, and you're using something like a 300 GSM Super Smooth, or even Pro Paper, something like that, where the fibres are tightly packed, then you need to increase your blade depth a bit because it's got to work a little bit harder to get through. Right, let's see what we've got now. So let's have a look. Let's peel this bit back. Right, so there we go now. So we've now got our vinyl. I'm just going to roll this back for you so that you can see. Like that. So it's now cut through that top layer, but it hasn't cut the back layer. Okay, so that's how you cut your vinyl. So depending on the age of your blade will depend on the blade depth that you use. Now on the SDX, it has an option to half cut. Well, that's what we've just done with our normal blade, because half cut is just enabling it to just kiss cut. We've also scored with our blade before, so I can show you that in another class, so we don't need to worry about half cut at all. And the weeding box is super simple. So I'm going to press OK, I'm going to go back, I'm going to move this underneath here, I'm going to add, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go add, OK. Oh, Melanie, come on, how do I add on here? Back to patterns. I have to remember because I switched between both machines. I'm going to go into my basic shapes, bring on a square, set it on the mat. I'm going to position that over there. I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go to resize, and I'm going to make it smaller. And then I'm going to drop that to there. I'm going to get it as close as I can. I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio. I'm going to change the height and the width. And I'm going to then put that around there. And that is my weeding box. And then I can make it a little bit narrower still. And put that over there. And then I'm going to cut that out. So not only can we make our own, we can do our kiss cut, our half cut, we can also do our weeding box too. There we go. Because I don't want anybody to ever think that we sold you, or I sold you, personally probably, a CM machine, and then along they came with the SDX and we forgot about the CM. Because there is nothing that I've found so far, I'm going to put that caveat in, that I've found so far that you can't do with a CM machine, some knowledge and potentially Canvas workspace that you can do with the SDX. So until your CM gives up the ghost, which it probably will eventually, like everything else electrical gives up the ghost, your washing machine, etc., etc., there's no reason for you to have to buy a new machine unless you want one. Because there's a difference between needing to and wanting to. So I'm just going to peel this back really gently, and I should have got my tweezers because this would have been a whole lot easier. So when you're pulling vinyl back on vinyl, release it first and then keep it as flat as you can. Okay, so just peel it back like this, keep your vinyl really, really, really flat. It's like doing a peel off, so now you can make your own peel offs, and it's brilliant for sentiments, I have to say. We sell vinyl on our website, so you can treat yourself to some of that if you're in the market for some vinyl. And then you can start to personalise. So when your grandchildren come to you and say, Nana, can you make my grandma, can you make me one of those water bottles that they've got in all those TV programmes? You can go, yes, well, of course I can. You can do it out of vinyl. There you go. Look. Andrew's just asked if I can make him some numbers to put on his bin so his neighbours stop stealing them. Yes, I can do that, Andrew. Absolutely, I can. Right, so we've cut fabric, we've cut regular poplin, we've cut stabilised cotton, we've cut leather, we've cut soft leather, glove leather I would call it, we've cut handbag leather, and we've done canvas, printable canvas, and we've done vinyl. So lots of different mediums. If you're wondering about construction board on a CM machine, if you go onto our YouTube channel, there is a specific video on how to cut the construction board that we sell that you're getting your 20% off. So you can do your cutting craft orient projects, or you can make the fronts and covers for your journals, etc., etc. So just search digital craftorium and it will come up for you. And I will see you next month. I don't think have we got a date yet, Andrew? We have, but I can't remember what it is. So the codes are CB20 to get 20% off your construction weight acetate. No, rubbish, Melanie. Construction board. I need to go and sit in a dark room for a little while and rock, I think. And Mel 10 is still going for another week. So if you want any extra accessories, mats, blades, etc., etc., where you're getting 10% off, you've got a code for that. 18th of April is the next one. So get your requests in, and then I know what I'm doing. Thank you ever so much for taking the time out to join me, and I will see you very, very soon. Take care. Lots of love. Bye. If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.